Good morning, everyone. Alex already introduced me, but my name is Eric. I work alongside Alex here at Pulaski County. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll get started. Okay, so I'm on the HMIS training site here so that no client data will be seen by anybody that shouldn't be. I'm going to go ahead and shadow this user that I made. Okay, so here we are at the home screen. There's just a few things I want to point out here. Up at the top right, you'll see your name and you'll see your role within HMIS. For most of you, it'll say Case Manager 3. That's what you should be set at. There might be a couple of you set at Agency Admin, but most of you only need to be Case Manager 3. Then below that, you'll see two important things here. There's the enter data as function and the backdate function here. So with enter data as, I just want to explain one thing to you guys here. So in HMIS, every organization is broken down into a level 3 and their level 4s. Level 3 is what we would refer to as the parent program, and the level 4s are the child projects. All of you, your profiles are assigned to the level 3, which means that you can enter data into any of the level 4s. Clients and their client information should not ever be entered into the level 3. You're going to want to make sure that you are actually entering them into the correct project within your agency there. So one way you can make sure that you don't accidentally do that is by using this enter data as function. I made an example agency in the training site here, and you can see it has two child projects. So if I was to be entering data into this ESG shelter, I could just click here, and then anything I enter will go directly into that program, so you don't accidentally enter it into the wrong program. And then below that, we have the backdate function. If you are not entering data that's current, say you collected the data last week or a few days ago, you could change that right here, again, to avoid accidentally putting in any data for the wrong date. And besides that, on the home screen, we have this news section here. The system news is just information that Alex and I can put on here for everybody to see. And then there's the agency news. You guys can all put announcements here that will be able to be seen by anybody in your agency. I just made this example post yesterday. For this admin tab over here to the left, this agency news is really the only thing you'll be able to affect. You go here to news admin, you could add news here or delete a post that you made earlier. You can also just add agency news directly from there. Okay, so that's the basics of the home screen, everything you'll probably need to know there. So we're going to go ahead and go into client point here.
Eric, let me stop you real quick. Cynthia sent a good point. Just so everyone is kind of on the same page, the HMIS stands for, I just want to give a quick overview of what HMIS is and what it's used for. HMIS is the Homeless Management Information System. It's required by HUD to be used if you have federal funding. if you just have private funding, you're not required to use it, but we want everyone in Arkansas to be on HMIS because we get that really solid data about where we are with homelessness and housing insecurity in the state. And it's also a really good way to gain more funding for agencies if we can have the most data possible. So I just wanted to throw that out there and give a little bit of an overview about what HMIS, what it's used for. So we collectively all put in data to HMIS, and then Eric and I are kind of responsible for that data quality piece, as well as running reports for RIE, ESG programs, PATH, anything like that, SSVF. So that's kind of a basic overview. Feel free to ask questions if you need some clarification. Sorry, Eric, go ahead.
All right, so here we are at client point. This is probably the most important part of the system for you guys. When you first click on it, you'll be brought to the client search section here. This is where you will add new clients or search for existing clients. Whenever you're entering a new client, you need to search the system to see if they already have a profile, to avoid accidentally making a duplicate profile. And if you do find a duplicate profile, then you should email Alex or myself and we can merge those, because we don't want a lot of duplicate profiles out there. If the client already exists in the system, that when you search for them, you should see them pop up down here, and you would just use this existing profile to enter them into your own project there. So I'm gonna just start as if I'm entering a new client into the system. I would type in their names, see no matches here at the bottom. So then you can go ahead and fill in the rest of this: name, social, and the data quality sections here. Then click add new client with this information. It'll give you a little warning saying be sure to look through to make sure to avoid making a duplicate profile. And when you click OK, you'll be brought to the new profile that you've created. You'll see their name and their client ID number here at the top left. You'll have this client record section up here where you'll see the data you entered when you created the profile. And below that, you'll see this client demographic information with date of birth and gender and race and all that. You can just go ahead and enter that information right here. But whenever you make a new entry assessment, it's going to ask you those questions anyway. And so you can just skip that. And then when you start your entry assessment, you'll enter that information. And when you save that assessment, it'll appear right here. So you can just save yourself a little time by not filling that out here, and it'll just be done through the entry assessment. Often when a client comes to your organization, they'll be part of a household. So I would recommend the very next thing you do if they are a member of a household is go to the households tab here. You can click start a new household. You will need to make sure to designate what type of household it is. We'll say it's a male single parent family, and say they have a daughter. So just like when you added the new profile, whenever you're adding a household member, you're going to want to also search to make sure that they don't also have a profile already. So you can search here, see no matches, enter in the rest of their information, and click add new client with this information. At the bottom here, you'll see all of your clients, the original one and the additional ones that you've added as part of their household. If they already have a profile, they would pop up here under client results. You can just click the little green check mark and it would add them right there. So once you've added all the family members to the household, you'll click continue down here. It's very important that right here you designate one person as head of household. It doesn't really matter which one it is. There just has to be one and only one head of household per household. So we're going to say Will is the head of household here. You click that to yes. This will automatically change to self. And then you'll need to make sure to give everybody else you've added a relationship. So we'll say that this is the daughter here. And then that's pretty much all there is to adding a household. You can then just click save and exit here at the bottom. And now their household will appear here in the household tab. So once you have made your client profile and added their household, next thing you'd want to do is go ahead and start your entry assessment. Just go to the entry exit tab here, click add entry exit. It's very important that you click here at the top to make sure that all of the members of the household that are being entered into your program are checked. If not, then it's only going to add one. And so here, it's if you don't use this enter data as function that I mentioned at the very beginning, it's just going to default to that parent level 3 program. And like I said, data shouldn't be entered into that. So if you don't do that up at the top, you have another chance here to make sure that you are entering them into the correct project here. Then you will select the assessment type. For most projects, it's going to be HUD. Say, for example, you have a RIE program, you would select RIE there. And just like the enter data as function, if you didn't start out by using the backdate function, then it's just going to default to the current date. So you again have another opportunity to backdate the assessment before you get started. And then we are on to the entry assessment itself. So here is the assessment. Like I said, all this demographic information will be here at the top. Even if you enter it into the client profile when you start, this is still all going to be blank when you start the assessment. So you're going to end up having to enter it twice if you do it at the beginning. So I think it's easier to just enter it here to save yourself some time. And then you will just answer these questions here. There's a number of data elements here, and they are all defined by HUD. If you have any questions about exactly how any of these questions should be answered, you can go to this page right here. I will link it into the chat in a minute. And this gives HUD's definition of each data element and some instructions about how you should go about entering those. So you'll answer these questions here at the top, and then you will get to the HUD verification section. Now, when you are starting a new assessment, you'll see these questions here, non-cash benefits, health insurance. And you may want to click this add button here, but that's not what you're supposed to do. You should go over to the right and click this verification button with the exclamation point, and it'll bring up a menu of all the available options. And so let's say that this client only receives SNAP here. So you would then just click no. So it'll automatically mark them all as no. And then you can click yes for the individual one that they receive and click save and exit. So that's, again, that's the correct way it should be done. Don't use this add button over here on the left. And then there'll just be some more questions that are specific to which type of assessment that you selected. And you will need to make sure to do that for every member of the household. And when you're finished with that, you can go ahead and click. Let me try something else here. So here, now we have both of the members of the household. So once you had finished filling out the information for the head of household, make sure over here on the left to click on each individual member of the household, and you're gonna have to enter all of this information again. Or, say there's like 4 members of the household. If you don't do that, then a ton of data errors are gonna show up because all of this information will be for all of the clients. Head of household, and I see that quite often. So just make sure that you do that for every client there.
Hey, Eric, can you go over adding households again? We had a question in the chat about that.
Oh, okay. What was the question?
How to add head of household.
All right. Yeah, so that first screen, whenever you click start new household, will be where you just add them, which is the same as when you added the original client there. And this would be the second screen. And these at the top, all of the members of the household will default to no. And so you'll find the client that you are designating as head of household and just click yes. And like I said, that will automatically change their relationship to self. And then you can change everybody else's relationship right there to the appropriate relationship there. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. If you could go back to the entry assessment, I just want to talk about that real quick. So again, it's in the entry exit tab. We're just going to go back into the entry assessment by clicking the pencil on the project start date. And now we're entering both clients into here. So I just want to emphasize how important it is to fill out all this information as accurately as possible. That's why we always suggest actually sitting down with your client and doing this entry assessment together. I understand that's not possible a lot of times. And there will be instances where your clients maybe don't want to reveal certain information. Of course, we understand this, HUD understands this. But if you can try to get as much information as possible, that's great. And Eric, if you could scroll down to the HUD verifications. So we can see right above the income and source HUD verification that it asks if there's income from any source. So this is a really common error that we get, is that people skip over these questions in between the HUD verifications. So we want to make sure, especially those answers align with what you put on that HUD verification. So if you were saying, yes, they have income from any source, but then you designate on the HUD verification that they don't, that's going to show an error. So we just want to really emphasize to match those up. So Eric said, yes, they do have income, and that's where he would go in and designate what kind of income. And especially for this, they're going to ask these follow-up questions that you can see on the screen right now. So they want to know the monthly amount, when that income started, and that's kind of the main 2 things that they need from that. So we'll save that. and now he is good. And when he saves and exits, we'll see that that turns into a green check mark. That's how we know we filled that out correctly. And then you can see right below income and source, total monthly income. I know you just answered it in the HUD verification, but if you don't answer it here, it'll show an error. So just be sure to fill that out. And then right below that, non-cash benefits, we designated that yes, he did. So we need to make sure that it says it there too. Same with health insurance and disability as well. Just make sure all your answers add up for that, and then fill out the HUD verifications as well. And I think we had a couple questions in the chat. So let me see. Okay. When a child is born while the mom is living at the shelter, what do we put as their previous location? Is it okay to leave it blank? Yes, that is okay for that specific situation. We call that leaving it null, which is basically leaving it blank. Yeah, so if that specific situation ever comes up, that's completely fine to leave that. Would it ever be possible to print a PDF version of the entry and exit assessments to use for paper files in order to have the most updated HUD required questions? Yes, Eric, haven't you printed out assessments, or am I making that up?
I believe you can just click this print button right here.
Yes,
And
there we go.
yeah.
Yeah, so that will print out the entry assessment, and that's a great idea from Shelby. Is if you're not able to sit down at a computer with your client and fill this out kind of live, you can also print this out, you know, and if you do street outreach, you can bring this on your street outreach and get all that information that we really need. Okay, I think that is all of the questions that we have right now. So we can go ahead and move on.
All right. So once you've filled out all of the information on their entry assessment there, you click save and exit, and you'll see their assessment right there. This tab right here is also where you'll do the exit assessments whenever the client leaves the program. You just click this little pencil right here that's under exit date, and you'll fill out these things. It won't let you move forward if you don't have an exit date and a destination. The exit date's going to automatically populate to the current date again. You could just change that right there to whatever is appropriate. And here for destination, I see a lot of people choosing one of these options down here at the bottom under other. And then they contact us and say, well, we're getting a lot of data errors for destination. Yes, if this is the only thing you can pick, then go ahead and pick one of these, but it's not going to count as a successful data collection for that data element. The HUD standards that I mentioned earlier, again, I'll link those in a minute. They say that basically, if any of these even loosely define the destination of the client, then go ahead and pick that. So it's better to pick one that's kind of close than it is to pick any of these down here. So you would go ahead and pick one of those. And then it'll just ask you about all of these verification questions that you answered in your entry assessment. And if any of these things changed, then you can go in and change them. Say they had this income at the start and they didn't now. You can put an exit date there for their income. Then after you do all that, click save and exit. Then the client will be exited from your program there. Besides that, there's also the annual assessment. If you need to do an annual assessment, then under the interims section here, you can just click this little page right there, add interim. Under review type here, you would click annual assessment. It's not going to let me do that because I made the date for the exit already. But it would look exactly the same as the exit assessment did, just asking you those HUD verification questions. And so that's how you do that. Whenever you run a data quality report, if you're getting a lot of errors for annual assessment, that probably means that those clients on that list have been in your project for over a year with no annual assessment. So you could just use that list to go through and add any annual assessments that you need to, or maybe some of those clients just need to be exited from your program and for one reason or another they weren't. So that's basically all there is to the assessments here. There's also these other assessments on the far right that are more just for your personal use. You can kind of search through here and see if any of these apply to, the type of information that you want to track. I know one time someone contacted me and asked if there was a way to store like a Medicaid number. So you could click medical insurance here and you could add and put in a policy number there if you wanted to. But unlike the entry assessments here, these aren't going to be required. This is just for your own personal use. If there's any additional information you'd like to keep track of in the client profiles, you can do that right there. So that covers kind of the basic, most important things you need to know as far as the client point, searching for clients, entering and exiting them into your programs. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Alex, and so he can pick up from here.
Ooh, thank you, Eric. Real quick, if anyone has any questions about what Eric just went over, please put it in the chat. And Eric, I'm actually going to have you click just on the other tabs and I'll briefly explain those. We really wanted to emphasize kind of those 4 tabs that Eric went over because those are where you are going to frequent the most. And also where all that required data elements from HUD are going to be hosted. So if you could click on ROI. ROI is release of information. If your agency has a release of information, this is where you can add that. We really suggest just to keep all of the information that you have on a client in one place just to make it easier for you. So it's not required again, but this is where you can keep your release of information and document that you do have that for the client. And then we will go to case managers. And so this is where you can assign which case manager is assigned to which client. So here we have the fake case manager, Anna, that Eric made. We can assign that to this client so that everyone at your agency, if they access a client profile, they know who is working with that client. And you can also add contact information like phone number. And then when you're done working with that client, you can also put an end date to working with that client. So it'd be when they exit from, your shelter, your street outreach, RI program, anything like that. And then we have case plans right next to that. Again, this is not required, but this is where you can either keep your goals on here, or you can actually upload your case plans. If you do those by hand, you can upload those as a PDF. Just so you have all the documentation in one place. But we can see here on Eric's screen, this is where you would add a goal. So if one of your goals is to find employment for your client, we can see right there classification. There's a bunch of different ones for mental health, substance abuse, And then the type is a more specific option for the kind of broader classification. And then target date for completing that goal, follow-up dates when you want to follow up with your client about how they're progressing with that goal. These are all kind of really, I think, cool options to go ahead and do. But again, it's not required by HUD to do this. I just think it's nice to have kind of everything in one place. Yeah, and so that is all the tabs for the information. Let me pull this down. Okay, let me, sorry, go into the chat real quick because I think we had. All right. Can you go over how you got into the system again? Okay, yes. So this is a web-based computer system. So anytime we add someone to HMIS, we always send the link as well as your username and a temporary password. So you use that link, and I suggest bookmarking it because you're going to be accessing it a lot. And if you do need that link, Eric, if you could go ahead and put the link in the chat, that's where you actually access HMIS. Yes, and we use Osmium, so ours looks different. Yeah, so that's a really good point that I probably should have brought up earlier. If you are a domestic violence service provider, you cannot use HMIS. You have to use a comparable database. And I think in Arkansas, probably the most common one is Osmium, like Danielle said in the chat. So I apologize if someone is on here from a DV agency, but most of this probably is not going to be applicable. As HMIS administrator and Eric as well, we're not allowed really to consult on how to keep DV data. And Eric put that link for the live HMIS site as well as the universal data elements. So if there's no more questions, I can go ahead and share my screen. Actually, is everyone good? Maybe let's take a 5-minute break, just if y'all need to use the restroom or get some water or anything. I have 9:40 on my computer right now, and let's just get back on here at 9:45 and we'll keep going.
31108.
All right, everyone. It's 9:45 on my computer, so we're going to get going again. Eric, if you could keep track of the chat, and if any questions come in, let me know or feel free to answer them yourself. So we are going to go over a few more things. Eric showed you kind of all the features on the home screen and the client point tab, which is the most important for all of you. Entering and exiting clients, searching for clients, filling out all the universal data elements and all of that. So I just want to quickly point out this tab on the left side called Resource Point. This is where you can actually search for other agencies that are on HMIS. And so if you are with a client and you're looking for a shelter, you can type keywords shelter, and all the different agencies with shelter in their name will come up. And you can also see if they are currently using HMIS. And the way you know that is if these little blue marks are by the agency, that means they are using Service Point. And if you just want to look up a specific place, so I'm going to type in Our House, which is a shelter here in Little Rock. We can see the parent agency, Our House. If you kind of hover over it, it'll, if there's a description, it'll give you that and the different services that they provide. And if there's also contact information listed, you can click on the agency, show full profile, and we can see that it has a big description right there, the primary services, secondary services, phone numbers, address, all of that good stuff. So that's just a resource for you. If you're looking for a specific place or a specific type of program, if you're looking for a RI program, that's something you can also type up here in the search function, and we can see all the different RI programs in Arkansas as well. So I just wanted to point that out. That can be a good resource. So probably the other most important thing besides client point is going to be reporting. So even if you don't have required reporting that you need to do, but you just want to know some information like how many people are currently in our program, what kind of demographics do we have in our program right now, are we missing any data that we need when our reports are required? This is a really good tab where you can kind of find out all that information. So earlier in the year, Eric and I sent out an email about data quality framework reports. And we also sent a workflow document that Eric created as well. That kind of gives you a step-by-step guide on how to run these. So we suggest to run a data quality framework at least once a month. And then you're not going to fall super far behind if there's some data quality errors that you're experiencing. And this is just a way to kind of keep on the front foot of that. So when you do have to enter or upload an ESG report or a RI report, that data won't be so overwhelming to fix before you need to turn that in. So I'll just go into the data quality framework right here that we can see. So the first thing is you can give it a name. So since our example agency is called that, I'm just going to name it exactly what the project is. You can choose to do a description or not. So for right here, you're pretty much always going to have provider, but I want to just briefly explain reporting group. If you want to run a report on 2 of your projects or more, then you can create a reporting group, or actually, sorry, you would have to contact us to create a reporting group. And of course, Eric and I are always available to run these reports for you. But I just want to go over this just in case you want to be able to run these by yourself. And Eric and I will also send out those workflow documents again, which will it's a Word document with step-by-step on how to do this. So again, if you just want to run it for your ESG shelter or specific project, we're going to have provider, and then provider right here, we can see it's on the parent program, but we don't want to run a report on the parent program because we're not uploading clients to that. We're uploading them to the child projects. So the drop-down menu, we can see our ESG shelter and RI. So we're going to click ESG shelter, and then the date ranges. I'm just going to put those in. Right here, we can see next to it, the date with the little green check mark will set to current date. You can also pull up a calendar if you'd rather do it that way. Again, the entry exit types, that means the funding type. And 99% of the time, that is going to be HUD. And when you're entering clients into your project, you're also choosing this type. So make sure that you're always consistently choosing HUD for both reporting and entering clients. The kind of exceptions to that would be if you have a PATH program or a RI program, but generally it's always going to be HUD. And if you ever have a question about that, please contact us before you start entering clients so we can figure out exactly what entry exit type you need. So then that's everything that you need to fill out, and you'll click build report. We see it populates here at the top. And it says that it's running. So you'll just need to refresh this every once in a while, depending on how many clients you have in that program. That will determine how long it takes to run the report. But normally it won't be more than 5 minutes, even for a huge report. So since we don't have that many, I clicked refresh and we see it says completed. So we'll go to the spyglass right here, or magnifying glass. Spyglass sounds cooler. And the report will populate below. So it's a really nice report if you just want to know some basic demographic information. So the first one is just total number of persons served. This is just a really common question that we get. How do we know how many people we've served in this program? This is a great way to do that just really simply. And we can see over here, there's 2, and we can actually click on this and we see the clients that Eric entered earlier. So we can download these results and they'll download into an Excel. And then you can print those off and have a physical list of all the clients that you've seen in that program for the date range that you put in. But this is also great for errors. So we see here that we have information missing for these, and that's just because Eric didn't fill those out just for the sake of not taking too terribly long on the training. But we can see right here, so we have a social security number error. And this is where we can see, where is that error coming from? Okay, this client, their ID is 30. So we can go back to client point. We can search for that client. Let me move this real quick. Their client ID is 30. It takes us to their profile, and we can see that they do not have a social security number entered here. So then we can click on that pencil. We can fill out a social security number, and always be sure to click the data quality piece as well, full SSN reported, and we'll go ahead. Oh, veteran status, sorry, filled out. Perfect. Save that, and we can see it populates right here. So we'll actually go back to this report, and I just want to run a new report now to make sure that that data is gone. I'm going to name it something slightly different now, so I know the difference between both of my reports, because both of them are going to be up here, so you can access older reports. I'll put in the same date range, current date. HUD is the entry exit type. We'll build that report. I'll refresh it, and now it says complete. Here's my new report, and that will populate below. And now we can see that there are now no errors with social security number because we just fixed that error. So this is a really great way to see about your data quality and go ahead and fix those errors before it's time for reporting. And it's the same thing for all of these as well: date of birth, race, ethnicity, gender. You can click on these and immediately see where the errors are coming from and go back and fix those. So if we scroll down again, it's just going to be more error counts for the next few sections. Errors in veteran status, client location, disabling condition, things like that. Yeah, destination, income and sources at the start, at the exit, at the annual assessment. And then we just have some cool information here about entering into project types, the number of project start records, exit records, all of that good stuff. So you can also download this entire report by clicking download, and it will download as a CSV report, which basically means this is a zip file with a bunch of different Excel files in it. So these are going to match up with all of the Q1 right here, Q1 right here. So if you're just trying to print out a specific section, like the reports validation table, that would be found here. So you can either print out one of those or all of them. It's kind of just up to you. Get out of that. So that is how you download the report. Let me look in the chat real quick. Yes, so reports can be printed off. We will send out the step-by-step and instructions for sure. And we also have step-by-step instructions for everything that Eric went over as well. So we will be sending all of those out to the COC leads and to the HMIS listserv. If you are not on the HMIS listserv, please email me and I will add you to that so we can all stay up to date with fun HMIS things. So just briefly, I'll go over some of the other common reports. If you have ESG or ESG COVID funding, this is the report that you would run for that type of project. If you have regular ESG, you are responsible to run and submit your own projects. ESG COVID, Eric and I take care of that. So just make sure you have the clients in, but regular ESG, you do need to know how to run this report. And it is going to be basically the same exact thing as the data quality report. You can name it, be sure on the provider to choose your ESG project, the date range, and the entry exit type, which again is going to be HUD in 99% of cases. And you just build that report. It's the same exact thing as the data quality framework. and then you download that report as a CSV file, like I showed you, and that CSV file is what you upload to Sage. That's what you submit to DHS for your regular ESG program. So if there's any questions on that, feel free to ask, but that is ESG. Again, we have a path report for the same thing. And down here, we see a RI report. And all of these are going to go pretty much the exact same way. You're going to enter the basic information, choose the correct project. So if you're doing RI, you choose the RI project and the RI funding. Again, we have SSVF for veteran programs. This is data quality, and then this is the export. So the export is actually what you run to upload your SSVF report. The data quality is the same thing as the data quality framework, but specifically for veterans because they have a different entry assessment. The last thing I want to point out, if there is something that your agency is wondering or one of your funders is wondering about in your program that cannot be found in one of these, we call them canned reports. So any of these reports up here, if you are not able to find the information that you need, you also have the option to create a unique report. Now, this is pretty in-depth and a little complicated probably for this training, but I do want to go over it just briefly, just so you know that you have the option to kind of create a unique report. I would say the best way to do this is to contact Eric or myself, since we've been doing Report Writer for a while now. So an example of that, if you want to know the services that you have given to your clients between a certain date range, that is something that we can do on here. Before I get started, let me look at the chat and make sure. Yes, so I will be sending out, again, the step-by-step instructions of pretty much everything that we're going over today. So we are, I understand, going a little fast and it's a lot of information, but we want to make sure that we give y'all a good overview of everything. But yes, we will be sending everything out, as well as this recorded training, so you can refer back to this. So just briefly, I'll just show y'all how we do Report Writer. Again, these are unique reports that you can't find in the canned reports. So see here, we have a lot of options. So I'm going to click Clients, Entry Exits, and Services, since that's kind of what we're trying to find today. Let me put this higher. So then we would go to Fields, and we see the 3 tables that we selected: Clients, Entry, Exit, Services. And now we're going to get a little more specific about what we want to see on the report. So I want to see the client ID, the first name, the last name, and there's an option for Social Security number. Are they a military veteran? Kind of everything that you would find in demographics. So entry exits, I want to know the entry date as well as the exit date. And then services, I just want to know the service code that is associated with this. So this is where it can get a little bit tricky. We're going to add filters now, so we can make sure the report is giving us exactly what we want. So we can see up here, filters, we can change any of these, but most likely you're always going to leave these the same. So yes, we want active clients, we want active entry exits, and active services. So I'm going to add a filter and do entry exits. Oops. Sorry, maybe that's clients. Okay, so entry date, entry exits, entry date. We want the entry date to be on or after, let's say, the beginning of last month. So we're going to save that. I'm going to add a new filter group. So again, we'll do entry exits. Then we'll do exit date and We see options here, is null, is not null. So you can always just replace null with the word blank. So is the entry exit blank or is it not blank? So we're gonna go ahead and do not blank. So they do have an exit. And then we'll do one more filter group for the services. We want them to be active. Or sorry, we're gonna go to code. I'm gonna have to move this again. So we can select code right here. And we just want to say is not null. So there is a code associated with it. So then we go to counting. It'll give us a preview of how many clients we see in this report. Of course, we're not going to see any in this because it's the training site. And then preview is actually where your report is going to be, and we can download that. So again, I know that's kind of complicated and it does take some practice. If people are interested, I can do a separate training just on Report Writer. But for the sake of this training, I don't want to get too in the weeds about that. If there's a specific report, a unique report that y'all want about your clients or your agency, feel free to contact us and Eric and I can get that for you. Let me look at the chat again. Yeah, case notes. So that is seen on the client profile. So let me go back to the client. Okay. Sorry. So we do have client notes on the client profile. Thank you for bringing that up. I'll kind of briefly talk about the bottom of the client profile. So like Eric said, this client record, client demographics, those are universal data elements. So we need to make sure that all of these are filled out. This is not required by HUD to fill out on HMIS. However, like I said, I think it's good to keep everything kind of on one site. So here we can see we can add client notes. So just real basic, we can set the date that it was on. So we'll say on the 1st, entered ESG shelter program. And save that, and now we can see that that note is here. We can delete it or edit it using the pencil, delete it using the little trash can. And you can also print all your client notes as well. File attachments, this is just if you have, so I always tell people, I think mainly people use this for identifying documents. So when I was a case manager, we always copied all identifying documents of our clients because, you know, those can easily get lost if you're having to sleep on the street. And it's good to have copies of everything so you can get originals again. So if you want to upload any file, you can do that here. You can choose the file and go to your computer and upload that. You can do a little description, social security number or social security card, and you can upload that here. And then lastly is incidents. So again, not required by HUD, but a good thing to have, especially since everyone working at your agency can access all the clients that you have because you're all on the same level 3. So right here, we can see the provider. You can specify whether this was in the shelter or someone as part of the RI program. So we'll say the shelter, when did the incident occur? And then type of incident. So we have a list here that HUD provides of types of incidents, and we can do that here. So can say they abandoned the program, the incident code. So you can put here if you want to suspend them from the program or terminate them from the program. And then to add the case manager that is writing up the incident, specifically if there's places that you are barring the client from, just the shelter, but maybe they can access other services, and then any other notes that you want to put right there. So that's kind of a cool little thing where you can keep more data on here for your own personal use. So I think that was everything with reports. All right, nothing else in the chat right now. If there's any questions about reports, feel free to put it in the chat, or go ahead and email us after if you think of something after the training. So kind of the last thing I want to go through is shelter point. So if you have a shelter, you have the option to use shelter point, and to actually have your unit list and bed inventory kind of like a live site of what is occupied, how many beds do we have available. You don't have to use shelter point. You can just use the entry exit tab on the client profile like Eric showed us, but just don't do both. Don't enter a client into a shelter on the entry exit tab and then also do it on shelter point, because then you're going to get 2 entries and it's going to throw off your report when you do a report for your shelter. So I am going to shadow a different fake client, Saul Goodman. Okay, so for the purpose of this, we're saying that Saul Goodman works at our house, so that we can access their shelter point. Again, it won't show any client information. This is just because they use shelter point and they already have a unit inventory in shelter point. So we can see this is what it looks like when you click on shelter point. Provider, we want to go to their ESG shelter. Wait for this to load. Okay, so see, we have some different options here. If you want to hold all your empty beds that you have right now, say you have 5 beds, but 5 people maybe are being transferred to your shelter, you can automatically hold all your beds so that they will be saved for those 5 people. But most of the time you're going to just use check client in. So this is what it looks like when you choose check client in. Again, this is specific to our house. They have a men's dorm and a women's dorm, and they have a specific number of beds, and they also have some cribs for children. So if you do want to use shelter point, just contact me and Eric, and we will be asking you kind of specific questions like this. How many beds do you have? Are they on site? Are there different units with different numbers of beds in there? Kind of those are all things that we need to know. So just quickly, this is what a unit inventory looks like. So say someone comes in and you want to check them into a bed. So we see floor 1 and bed 1. Let's say that that is empty, like it designates right here. So we can click on empty. And this is where we're going to search for the client, just like in client point. We're going to search for the client that is coming looking for a bed, and you're going to add them. So I'll look up, okay, and I'm looking at the social security number that links up with this client that's sitting in front of me. So is the date of birth, so it must be Hank Schrader. So I click that little green plus button, and now he's going to be added to floor 1, bed 1 in the men's dorm at our house. So here, these aren't required up at the top, but I think it's always good to put in these notes so you have everything in the same place. So supplies given, you can see blanket, water, food. If there's lockers, we can say what locker number he has, any other additional notes. This is also where you can add incidences for this client in the shelter. Household members, if there are more than one person from his household checking into the shelter, this is where you would also add those. But let's just say it's just Hank, it's not John or Marie. And again, if he already has an entry assessment, it's just going to auto-populate below here. So please still go over the entry assessment if you're checking someone into shelter point. Make sure that all of this is up to date. If it's not, please make it up to date. So yeah, that is basically it for how to check someone into a bed in your shelter. And then we go back up to the top, we see that he is in the shelter bed, floor 1, bed 1. He has not been exited. So over here, you can check him out. That is how you would do that. So click on check out. And you do have to fill out destination and reason for leaving, just like any exit assessment. So we're going to say left for housing opportunity. And we're going to say transitional housing. And make sure, again, that all of these are already filled out. If they already have the exit assessment in HMIS, it should auto-populate. So we are good there. Save and exit. And now that bed becomes empty again. So we can add someone else to it if we need to. Let me go back real quick. So just a few other things here. We can print ID cards. You do have to obviously take a picture of your client. I would say that most agencies do not do this, but there is the option to print out ID cards. So I'm not going to go over that since it's not used, but if you do want to start doing that, feel free to reach out to me and we can work together and how to do that. So that is everything really for the basics of Shelter Point as well. Let me look at the chat real quick. Will programs looking for beds for a client be able to access this for a referral? No, so you can't access anyone else's Shelter Point. You can only access things within your agency. So what I would suggest doing is going to that resource point. If you're looking for beds, type in shelter, and it will give you all the shelters that we have in Arkansas on HMIS, and you can contact agencies that way to see if they have vacancies in their shelter. And then if they're using Shelter Point, they would go into Shelter Point on their HMIS and see if they have any empty beds, if they're keeping that up to date. So that is kind of everything that we wanted to hit today. If there are any other questions, feel free to unmute and ask out loud or put it in the chat. I think that's everything that was in the chat, but does anyone else have any questions about anything that we've gone over today?
Hey, Alex.
Hey.
I kind of like fell back a little bit because I had a client in here this morning, and I know that my coworker, Miss Teresa, is an awesome trainer. She will help me get into this system. Now, help me out if I'm wrong or right. Client Point is where we start. Client Point is where we start to input everything into the system, correct?
Yes, because you first want to search if that client is already in the system. And then if they're not, this is where you add the client to the system.
And that's from Client Point.
Yes, but I just want to clarify that when you add a client to the system, it's not adding it to your project yet. That's when you go into the entry exit tab on the client profile, and that's where you add them to your actual project. Here's where you just add them to the overall HMIS.
Okay. And now Shelter Point.
Yes.
So Shelter Point is where I actually find out if they're in another shelter, or is this where I do my inventory?
This is where you would do your inventory. So
okay.
if your agency is already using Shelter Point, it'll be set up in there. But if it's not, you can contact us and we can set you up for Shelter Point.
Okay.
And we can do, a kind of specific agency training for y'all if you want to just do a training on Shelter Point and start using that.
Right.
Yeah, but this isn't where you look up if clients are in shelters. This is where your shelter unit inventory would be to see if you have empty beds, and if you do, you can check a client in.
So basically that's just for other shelters to kind of look around and see if there is an empty bed anywhere. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And so home. Let's see where we at with home, because I'm sorry, I apologize to everyone. I was kind of a little late. Okay, when we are in home, I see that home. So when we come in here, we don't go to home. We actually go to Client Point in order to input the information first.
Right. So when you log in, this is going to be the first screen that you see. You'll be on the home page right when you log in. So if you need to ever get back to this, you would just click home. But yes, pretty much you're going to be spending all of your time in Client Point.
Okay.
And this is where
Okay,
you would
and that's-
search. So we'll say Hank again. That's our client. So we don't need to add a new client. We can just go to that profile. And so here is Hank's profile. And then this entry exit tab. So we have households if you need to add people to a household or take people out. But entry exit tab is where you're going to be doing most of your stuff on HMIS. So this is where you add an entry exit.
Okay, I got all of that information. Now, say I'm just booting my computer up and I'm needing to put some stuff in HMIS. Where in the search bar, do we have an actual icon or something that we go to? Is it Google or what? Tell me how to get actual to this.
Yeah, so it's web-based. So you can just pull up whatever kind of browser you're using, Google Chrome or Windows. I guess I don't really know that many other browsers. But yeah, just pull it up like you're going to search for anything on the internet. And then in the chat, Eric put the link to Service Point. And I would go ahead and bookmark that link. So then you can just pull up your bookmarks whenever you need to do something in HMIS, click that, and it'll bring you to the login page. And then when you log in, it'll be.
But it's called Service Point.
Yes. So HMIS is kind of the general homeless management information system. The specific system we use is called Service Point. And it's the software provider is WellSky. Not that y'all necessarily need to know that, but it's some interesting information. So yes, Service Point, HMIS, those are kind of used interchangeably here in Arkansas.
Okay. All right, that's all. Thank you so much.
All right, you're welcome. And Eric put that link in the chat again, if you want to go ahead and click on that and save it.
Okay.
Okay, does anyone else have any questions? Nope. Okay. Well, I'm going to stop sharing then. Again, this is being recorded, so I will send out this recording next week. Most likely it will be a YouTube link. We will also send out all the workflow documents that give you a step-by-step on how to do all the things that we went over today. And if any of y'all think of questions when we're done with the training today, feel free to email us, call us about anything HMIS related. We're here to help you. That's our job. If you're just worried about something in your reporting or wondering how to fix data quality issues, seriously reach out to us. We love to talk to y'all. And thank y'all so much for joining us today. Make sure if there's anyone at your agency that wasn't able to make it, that they watch the recording. Yeah, and let us know if you have any other questions. I'll go ahead and stop the recording now. Yeah, so thank y'all so much.
Thank you. It was awesome.
Thank you, Alex.
Y'all are welcome. Very welcome.